So I'm a fan of a lot of game franchises, whether it be Fable, Fallout, GTA, Assassin's Creed, unfortunately. And over their lifespans, we've seen all of those series change, evolve, and adapt, whether it be GTA 4's unique tone, Batman Arkham Knight turning into a tank simulator, or whatever the fuck Fallout 76 was. When game series try to evolve and grow, more often than not, there's a few hitches along the way, ideas that don't fit the identity of certain franchises, or abrupt changes to formulas that feel rushed and shallow. But there's one series that I've been playing over on twitch.tv/fscarab live, shameless plug, that simply doesn't run into these problems. A series that grew over a decade to become one of the most beloved in the industry. That series, of course, if you've read the title, is Uncharted. Now, when I say Uncharted flawlessly evolved, that by no means is me saying that every game is flawless in itself. We've seen the quality of these games fluctuate pretty massively over the years, and that began with Drake's Fortune back in 2007, a game that despite decent sales, certainly released to mixed reception. Uncharted Drake's Fortune has without a doubt aged poorly, but what it did back in 2007 to lay the foundation for this series was exactly what it needed to do. Dispelling claims that the game was nothing more than a Tomb Raider clone, the game introduced a world full of intrigue, a cast of characters full of charisma, and an identity that was completely its own. Although it focused a massive volume of its content on the gunplay, which at times can be fairly clunky, the game also brought puzzles, platforming, and a couple of set pieces that gave it at least some semblance of variety outside of the major gunfights. The puzzles themselves weren't particularly complex, the set pieces were on a small scale, but despite their flaws, these pieces of content really pulled the game together, being the anchors upon which the minute-to-minute gunplay occurred. Drake's Fortune could have easily been cast aside, lost in the mass of other third-person shooters that released post-GTA San Andreas, but Sony saw some potential in the project and decided to grant Naughty Dog the chance to make a sequel. And Naughty Dog knew that they'd have to truly upgrade the flawed formula of their first entry if they really wanted this series to stick. So that's exactly what they did. In just 2 years, Naughty Dog were able to create the sequel to Drake's Fortune. Uncharted 2 Among Us. Wait, shit, no. Among Us. Uncharted 2 Among Thieves. Widely regarded as one of the best games of all time, considered a masterpiece by many, and to me, the perfect sequel to the original game. Opening with an enigmatic moment of fear, it was clear from the moment you saw Nathan Drake grasping onto the train that Naughty Dog were taking the scale of Among Thieves to another level. But honestly, even that might be an understatement. Somehow, despite the gameplay between 1 and 2 being largely the same, Among Thieves was immediately considered leagues better than its predecessor. And although you could easily claim that that was due to the set pieces, for me, what made Uncharted 2 so much better than Drake's Fortune was the simpler upgrades. The gunfights, which found themselves to be tedious and clunky in the original, were now smoother, with the gunplay itself more refined and the level design far more intricate and dynamic. The platforming, whilst having the same fundamental movement patterns, was now used in vast caverns, in war-torn cities, or in massive mountain ranges. The puzzles, no longer simple button pushes, actually utilised the other gameplay mechanics in interesting ways. The addition of a stealth system, something that was dearly lacking in the original, made encounters with enemies so much more interesting, even if that stealth was an absolute mess at times. And then there's the story, a story which follows the same general formula as the original, but with small changes that elevate it massively. A story that's perfectly paced, with just as much intense octane action as there is calm, down-to-earth character moments. The characters themselves are given more to do, and Chloe in particular is introduced in a natural way, making her feel like a part of the existing world as opposed to a tacked-on addition from the original. All of these small changes add so much to what on the surface is a simple treasure hunting third-person shooter, and it's those changes that are responsible for Among Thieves being considered one of the best games of all time. I mean, the train is also one of the most technically impressive set pieces of all time, so that helps, for sure. But it's the small changes. It is. It is. Once again, Naughty Dog took a 2-year break, and the original team moved to The Last of Us, leaving a secondary team to work on Uncharted 3 Drake's Deception. And whilst I feel that Uncharted 3 is significantly worse than the original 2, it does do a great many things that improve upon the series as a whole. The first one that comes to mind, and the first one that's presented to the player, is the hugely improved melee combat system, which once again still captures the essence of its predecessors while still making changes to give the player more control and to make hand hand-to-hand fights both cinematic and fun, instead of glorified QuickTime events. More importantly than that though, what stands out about Uncharted 3 is how it develops the depth of the characters we've come to know, in particular the relationship between Nate and Sully. Up to this point, we knew very little about either's backstory. We knew who they were as people, but the relationship and past was always left obscure. But in Uncharted 3, we get flashbacks fleshing out how they came to know each other, we get stories about who they were and what they've done, and most vitally, we get a genuinely well-built character arc for Nate, something that despite Among Thieves' brilliance, the second game was slightly lacking. I don't personally agree with the narrative direction of Drake's deception. In fact, there's a fair few things that the story does that I absolutely despise. And I also feel some of the gameplay systems were slightly impaired by brain-dead AI and some simplistic mission design. It is definitely the game in the series that came closest to ruining its evolution, but it can't be denied that despite its flaws, it builds on at least some of the things that the original two games lacked, without ever compromising the feeling, atmosphere, and identity of what Uncharted was. But it is nothing compared to Uncharted 4, a game which took every single thing the original trilogy did and built a skyscraper on top. Releasing 5 years after the slight disappointment of 3, A Thief's End feels like the ultimate culmination of what this series is. I think the first thing everyone notices about Uncharted 4 is its graphics. Graphics that could easily hold up being released in 2021, graphics which are on par with the absolute best of the last generation of consoles. But after the player gets past the stunning visual fidelity, they realize that the game itself feels even more incredible to play than it does to simply look at. Rarely will you find the endless shooting galleries of Uncharted 1, but when you do, they fully embrace their roots and feel like the original game. The incredibly built set pieces take what Uncharted 2 and 3 did and put them in a wide open space, making the player truly feel the danger and adrenaline that Nathan Drake would feel. The platforming once again brings back everything present in the originals, but adds a fucking bat claw. The stealth, oh my god, the stealth, is finally fully integrated into the experience, with dedicated detection meters and hiding spots allowing for the player to take on each chapter how they please, instead of forcing them down any specific path. The story, a truly complete story, is filled with brilliant subplots, character arcs, and twists that further strengthen the bond the player has to the characters, and makes every single moment truly mean something. The world, not only gorgeous, is far more open, with places to explore on your journey, but it never fully turns into an open world game. It always maintains the linearity and direction of the series, which of course stays true to the franchise, but also ensures the near perfect pacing never falters. Even the addition of a driving mechanic, something that was tried and failed a year earlier with Arkham Knight, feels naturally interwoven into the story, and the system itself is smooth and well crafted. I could go on for hours about what makes Uncharted 4 great, but what's truly important here is that despite its changes, improvements, and additions, it always feels like Uncharted. It always stays true to Uncharted. At no point does it feel disconnected or dissonant with the original games. Despite Drake's fortune releasing nearly a decade earlier, A Thief's End still feels in every way like the same franchise. It never compromises former plot points or gameplay mechanics to try and force anything in. While so many franchises began incorporating RPG elements at the time of its release, while so many games had shifted to being open world in order to stay relevant, Naughty Dog never succumbed to the pressures of the industry. They never turned Uncharted into something it's not. They never compromised what they had built all those years ago with Drake's fortune. Developers and publishers should look up to what Naughty Dog were able to do with the Uncharted series, how they were able to maintain a relevant franchise for so long, how they were able to adapt and grow so fluidly without diluting its identity. We see so many studios out there these days claim to be evolving their franchises by adding mechanics and systems that actively contradict their series identity, and it's so refreshing to see a team able to build their series the right way. Not by following industry trends, not by pumping out annual releases, not by creating inflated 100-hour games and overpriced season passes, but by taking a truly unique concept, building it from the ground up, and flawlessly evolving it. But as always, that is just my opinion, so make sure to leave your opinion down in the comments below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Are you just mad that I didn't talk about Lost Legacy? Also, if you enjoyed the video, it would really help me out if you could hit like. I'd really appreciate it. And if you're new here and want to see more content like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to turn post notifications on so you don't miss another video like it. If you want to support the channel, my Patreon link is in the description. Any little bit helps, so feel free to check it out. And with all that being said, I've been Joe, aka Found a Scarab, and I will see you in the next one.